name is Maurice Arnold. I live at the south side of Tamworth. I've lived there all my life. I was born in 1925 and I've known the Tame Valley and Tamworth area for all my life, lived here all my life, south side of Tamworth. And I first started being interested in nature and the environment and nature conservation from the earlier stage, really. I'm one of 5 brothers and sisters. Anne and myself still living. Was born on the old Wetlands Street at Wellnicott, a house there, miners' cottages. And there were 10 of us living in a 3-bedroomed house. One cousin, 4 of us children, mother and father, and grandparents. And in those days, there was a lot of poverty about, and we had to grow our own food, which we did. We had a large garden, and grandparents and mother and father were keen on growing things to feed the lot of us. And we grew a lot of vegetables, sacks of potatoes, cabbages, carrots. I do remember father was very good at growing celery for one thing, loads and loads of different vegetables and a few flowers and a little fruit. So I got to know which vegetables were which and which fruit was which and various flowers, and we were taught to know which were good species to the gardener or allotment holder and which were pests. The pests included twitch grass, couch grass, that is the roots of couch grass. We had to dig those up and get rid of them. Wire worms, of course, were a pest. So we got to know which were pests and which were good for the gardeners. Some thrushes, for instance, were good because they eat the snails and slugs and help for the gardener in general. So we grew a lot of different plant life, really. And I got interested in the wildflowers, different shrubs and trees and whatever there was around there. Amongst the wildflowers there were little pretty blue flowers called, mother called them bird's eyes. And when I got to early book, elementary book, or 2 earlier on wildlife, it was Swedwells I found. Oh. Bird's eyes. No mention of bird's eye, so I had to work it out. Bird's eye was Swedwells. Then I found there were several different kinds of Swedwells, so that took a bit of sorting out. And from one thing to another, I gently, slowly learned which were different flowers and different plants and got interested in the plants in particular. And as I say, we were told which birds were a nuisance and which were worth preserving, and we were told not to collect birds' eggs, but that didn't go down very well. Nearly everyone in those days collected birds' eggs, usually 1 egg from a nest, but some of my friends took all the clutch of a blackbird or thrush or robin in those days. There were early nests, of course, before the leaves come on the hedgerows and trees, so the birds just got used to it and laid another clutch when the cover was better, and usually were more successful then. So I wasn't very good at bird egg collecting myself. I remember once taking probably a sunthrush's egg, putting it in my pocket and squashed it.
Oh.
And that made a mess of my jacket of one of my best clothes. So got in trouble with that and didn't like birds egg collecting very much since. I mean, much discouraged since, and thank goodness, and hardly anyone collects birds' eggs now, I think. There are some professional egg collectors I know which are a big nuisance. But anyway, I was more interested in the birds and the eggs anyway. And talking about wildflowers, I went to junior school at Wilnecote near Tamworth, and fortunately we had a lady teacher that was very keen on botany, a Welsh lady, and she taught us what she could doing lessons, and then had a group of children after school and took us around the local lanes and looking at the hedgerows and the fields and finding out different wildflowers. So we learned a lot about wildflowers, and she found various orchids and things we don't get now really at all. Arable land flowers that we don't get. So a lot have died out, a lot have changed. We used to have in the fields, the cornfields, a lot of corn cockle, corn marigold, corn flower, very pretty. Poppies too, loads and loads of poppies as well as wheat and barley and all that. So I got to know all these flowers, and we had competitions now and again. We made an album, scrapbook, of the wildflowers we found. We talked about how to press them, so we had to name them. So we named them in English, of course, didn't know any scientific names, and compared them with those in books, and got most of the wildflower names right. A lot of the children with me weren't very good at it and weren't much bothered, and didn't matter to them whether they got a name right or not. But I was always keen on finding out what was what. Birds, animals, wildflowers, various things. So as time went on and we got a little older, all my family were quite interested in wildlife, the environment and so forth. So we did what we could to encourage interest in nature in general, the surroundings and the habitats. I've always been keen on the habitats, where places where the birds and flowers live. Some like wet ground, some woodland, some hedgerows, some villages and some in gardens and all that. All interested me. So I was interested in the landscape in particular. That was, I think, a good start to my interest, and which I've kept up ever since, 90 odd years now. I think I'm known mainly as a botanist these days. In recent years I've been doing more on botany. As we grew older, we learned scientific names and got in touch with people who know a bit about different things, plants, animals, and it happened that the flora of Warwickshire was being started, Birmingham University, and they and ourselves, brother and myself, got in touch with those, and they wanted to know all about which flowers and trees, bushes and whatever were finding around Tamworth. So we got on well with those, and they brought us along a lot, identifying the rarer flowers and more difficult groups. we contributed a lot to these early surveys. The early work was one called the Computer Map Flora by Professor Jack Hawkes, Robert Widett and Dorothy Cadbury, and they were all very keen and helpful to me, including Dorothy Cadbury. She helped me and brother sort out various things. She was especially keen on pond weeds, and my brother found a lot of different pond weeds around Tame Valley, River, Tame and tributaries and canals and pools and especially overcut pools, which were morning subsidence pools, caused by the collapse of coal mining seams underground, and later on it became some outcast coal sites, and I was very interested with my brother in preserving these places where we found a lot of different species in certain places, woodlands, wetlands, waste ground and so forth. And talking about open cast coal mining, in those days the need for coal in the war years, Second World War, was very great, of course, and various places, fields all around Tamworth were excavated for open cast coal for the power stations and so forth, which meant the National Coal Board and the open cast executive just had a plot of 100 acres or so to dig up the ground and get the coal and put the land back, as it were. It seemed a great shame to brother and myself that such places were lost. Some very good habitats, of course, were dug up and the coal extracted, and the land was just dumped back any higgledy-piggledy form. The topsoil was taken off first, of course, and then the lower layers later, and the deeper strata at the end, and the coal extracted, and then the layers were replaced in any order, really. And one open cast coal site at Dordon was particularly poorly restored, all boggy land for years and years, which wouldn't hardly grow anything. But in time, people learned, and they learned to put the lower layers of the soil that were extracted were put at the lower levels when they restored it, and the topsoil went back at the top in the end. So that took a lot of time to sort those out and get that restored to good agricultural land again. But there was, as I say, a lot of places threatened, very good places. One of them, Overcut pools, mining subsidence pools along the River Anchor, north, east of Tamworth. Brother in particular was studying what was there, a lot of different birds and weeds and whatever there. And one of the pools there, the best pool, 12 acres, was to be excavated for open cast coal with 2 other sites nearby. But we happened to save that. Thank goodness, we're very keen on conservation. Fortunately for us, one of the people, bird watchers that my brother know, visited Overcut Falls with his son-in-law. His son-in-law married his daughter. The man involved happened to be chairman of the new Nature Conservancy Council, government body, and chairman of the OSVB, so we were fortunate to know him. He happened to serve in the government during the war, after the war. He was Attorney General, and he took it off at high level with the government, and in the House of Lords he made an amendment to the Open Cast Coal Act that the Open Cast Coal executive should take notice of the importance of wildlife habitats, the environment, during the course of their duties. That was passed without opposition, I believe, and became law. And shortly after that, the same member of the House of Lords made an amendment to the Central Electricity Generating Board, requiring them to take notice of the environment, the natural wildlife that exists there. One of those places was Hams Hall here. This is one of the very first study places, environmental study places in Britain, or anywhere really. And at Albuquerque Pools, the pool in question was saved, and that became distinctive really as having the law changed, that government departments, other government departments as well, had to take notice of what the importance was of the landscape and wildlife, and take it into consideration. And ever since then, it's burgeoned. The first nature trails in Britain, one was at Albuquerque Pools, one at Kenfig Dunes, South Wales, and one at Ainsdale Dunes, Southport. So again, we were, brother and I, involved with an early change in government policy really. And early on, the nature trail at Albuquerque Pools was visited by 20 or so ministers of the environment in Europe that came and had a look what was doing there, and they took it up all over Europe too. A lot's evolved since then, and as I say, Hams Hall here was one of the leaders with the educational nature reserves. All happened because the departments involved were required to take interest in these things, and they did very well. There was much cooperation then between the Coal Board, Open Cast Executive, people like us, very few amateur people involved, and things grew from that. Some people got more and more interested. The early warden here, the one at Albuquerque Pools, was my brother, the warden that conducted educational projects and so forth, and the one here was Harry Lee, a good old member of the West Midland Bird Club, and Edwin Hopkins at Kingsley Water Park. He helped get that going. Some gravel pits were opened up there, 1940s, 1950s. Again, no system about it, just where the gravel and sand was. They just dug it up, and no responsibility for restoring it or anything. Just dumped whatever they could, or just left the pools to be restored by nature. And nature took over very well at these places. Open cast, quarry sites, and gravel pits, sand pits, clay pits as well. And over the years, the conservation movement got going. Brother and I helped form the first nature conservation groups in the Midlands. Albuquerque Pools was the first informal nature reserve in the West Midlands. And it grew and grew, and lots of people became interested, and just a few dozen people were keen on the West Midland Nature Conservation Trust as it was in 1959. Both and I were in at the start with professional people, really. Yes. Academic people got these going, universities and so forth. Gradually more and more family people like ourselves were involved. Now, thank goodness, a lot of years later, there's a lot of family interest now in such places as these nature reserves. A lot of nature reserves now in Staffordshire, Warwickshire, West Midlands, and I think we helped get things started, and Middleton Hall as well. Yes. That was falling down in the old days, 1940s, 50s. Mm-hmm. Gravel pit workings, becoming derelict. And in the early days, as I say, we were well in touch with the Warwickshire County Council and Warwickshire Museum, the County Museum. And the lady there, the Keeper of Natural History, she was interested in Tame Valley, Middleton Hall, and the old hall becoming derelict. So we persuaded her to come and have a look at Middleton Hall and the grounds, and she came and was very keen on Middleton Hall and all the SSSI, who helped start the SSSI, sorts of special scientific interest in the Midlands. Albert Pools, we had reported on all what was there, all the old history and all the ownership and whatever. And Kingsley Wood, again nearby, and Middleton Hall, we had become the first sorts of special scientific interest in the Midlands, and they're still going. Yes. And Middleton Hall, the lady involved, Pam Copson, had the experts from Warwick County Council come and inspect Middleton Hall, and they found the fabric was good enough to be restored. And instead of it falling down, they had tarpaulins put on the roof and did whatever to keep it going. And thank goodness there were a lot of volunteers that came and helped restore Middleton Hall from falling down to, perhaps you know what it is now, yes. A very magnificent place like it used to be, yes. Before it was derelict. So again, some help with the saving of Middleton Hall. We had a lot of help from those people. Cooperated with all those involved here, Kingsley Wharf Park and Middleton Hall Lakes now. Middleton Hall Lakes is another thing. When the gravel pit, sand and gravel working was near the end in Warwickshire, there was much opposition. Didn't want sand and gravel working in Staffordshire. So there was a meeting, sand and gravel pit people, county councils and local people, and Brother and I were invited. What was to happen? The building people, housing people, development of industries wanted the building materials. Yes. So what could be done? No sand and gravel working in Staffordshire. So it was my own idea. Why not restore it to pools specially designed and for nature restored as it is now. People, public visiting, public place, restored for wildlife and landscape and all that, and that happened to be accepted. We had much help from the Staffordshire ecologist at the time, Roger Hill. He and the Staffordshire ornithologist Frank Gribble were a great help in saving, in getting this through. Plans for the restoration of gravel pit working, sand and gravel working in Staffordshire, Tame Valley, Staffordshire, from Warwickshire, and Roger Hill and the Staffordshire people provisionally decided to South East Staffordshire Country Park. Then the RSPB got involved. Took them a year or two to study things. They eventually agreed could be an RSPB, nature reserve, for the public. And that's happened now.
Yes.
So again, that's come a long, long way.
Yes.
And that's how things have developed from very few people being involved. At Middleton Hall, it's well known for the two 17th century naturalists, John Way, Francis Willoughby, famous father of ornithology, Francis Willoughby called, and John Way, famous botanist, Cambridge University. So thank goodness that was saved and well remembered now as a memorial to them, really. Way and Willoughby's old residence at Middleton Hall. Yes. So again, been very nice to follow in their footsteps, really.
Yes.
My brother and myself. My brother died 24 years ago, so I've carried on ever since. Got plenty of friends, like, here. The Wetlands Centre people are very good now the last few years. The lottery funds have done great work with the very helpful staff.
Yes.
So that's how things have developed from that point of view to the main interest now, conservation and maintaining these interesting places. So that's the beginning on how things have developed.
The last question I wanted to ask, what work you're still doing nowadays and what you would like to see happening in the future?
We'll continue with the Tame Valley Wetlands scheme. It's very good to have these places considered as one landscape area instead of a lot of small places. Fortunately, at Tamworth we've got a lot of corridors for wildlife. Railway, two railways crossing at Tamworth, canals cross at Tamworth. Motorways are all very good routes. They're all very good corridors. Unfortunately, at Tamworth, Borough Council have kept a lot of corridors during the developments, and it comes into planning quite a lot now,
yes.
which it didn't in our early days. No planning, no records of biology of the counties and so forth. All that's developed. All that will develop further, hopefully. The more, the better, getting together with developers and seeing how wildlife, the environment, landscapes can fit in with modern development. More developed going to come about, evidently. Housing and industries, and let's hope it's all integrated. It has been in the past, I think.
Yes.
Brother and I had produced in the 1980s, 1986, I think, 2 booklets on
Yeah.
The floor went for Tamworth, Borough, and the floor went for owner of North Warwickshire.
Yeah.
And that was a great help for planning people
Yes.
to get together all the planning interests and wildlife and wildlife interests and how to integrate them all. So I hope a lot more of that will come about. And education, of course.
Yes.
When Mother and I were young, nearly all the countryside was farmland, open country. Much of it's been developed now, a lot of building up, a lot more population. So there's been a great increase in interest in these things, nature reserves and volunteering. All our early work was all volunteer work, and there's lots of volunteers now helping here at the Tame Valley, and I very much hope that continues and get more and more help from that point of view. And funding, of course, always interesting. And I'd love to hear any other funding. It's a great help which we didn't have in the past, I must say. It took a lot of fighting for all these things early on, with hardly anyone interested, and a long, long way has come since then.
Yes. I think that's perfect.
Thank you.
That's wonderful, Maurice. Thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Absolutely
Well,
wonderful.
from you.